So today is really kind of about creating a new relationship with the idea of discipline. And I chose the talk title today, Disciples of Life, because first I liked it. But when we think of the word disciples, probably for most of us, it immediately goes to Jesus' 12 disciples. And that was another reason why I chose that, because when Jesus was picking his disciples, he said to them, follow me, follow me. And just like the Daily Word said, discipline, the root of that is a pupil and to learn. And so he's saying, follow me and learn from me. I'm gonna teach you to do the things that I have done and even greater, and then you are to go out and to teach others the same thing. And metaphysically, what this represents for us is that we are to follow the Christ within us and become disciples to that, and let that be what we are following, and that we are developing within ourselves. Charles Fillmore, one of the things that he was very well known for was the 12 powers, and how he took the 12 powers and he really expanded that. And the 12 powers are represented by the 12 disciples. And the 12 powers are powers that every single one of us are imbued with. And I'm going to remind us again what they are. They are life, imagination, power, judgment or wisdom, understanding, zeal, elimination, faith, love, order, will, and strength. And the belief is that as we develop each of these powers and we continue to do whatever is ours to do to develop these within ourselves, not only is that the point at which we are expressing our fullest Christedness, but I'm going to tell you too that you're going to be living your best life. Did anybody here not want to live your best life? Okay, no hands up, that's good. Because of course we all want to live our best life. And I really believe that we wouldn't be in a unity church if we also didn't want to develop our Christedness, really develop being that expression of goodness and of possibilities and of connection and oneness, of kindness and compassion and forgiveness and all the things that Jesus represented in our lives. So we're going to talk about discipline. From the dictionary, Webster, it says that discipline is an activity, exercise, or a regimen that develops or improves a skill, that develops or improves something that we're wanting to do. Now, I love this. I'm not sure where that talk title came from. Okay. Oh, the cycles, not the disciples. You guys are probably wondering, what the heck is she talking about? That's not the talk title. Okay. Paul said in Romans chapter 7, I think this is interesting. I know that I so resonated with this. The things I want to do, I don't. And the things I don't want to do, I end up doing. And the reason why? For I failed to practice the things that I desired to do. And so this is really about those things that we've really been wanting to strengthen in ourselves, whether it's good eating habits, good exercise habits, good financial habits, whatever it is, that we've been failing to practice to do. And so we end up doing what we don't want to do instead of doing really what it is that we want to do. So the powers that we're going to call upon today in order to really work with this idea of discipline, we're going to call upon first the power of power. And our power of power is our ability to master and to have dominion over our thoughts and our actions. Okay, so the power of power, the ability to master and have dominion over our thoughts and our actions. We're also going to call upon the power of will. This is a big one for us. Our will is the power to choose, to decide, to command, to lead. And how many of us, we talk about willpower. So our willpower is when we're putting together that we do have dominion over our thoughts and our actions, and we're going to use the power of our will to lead and guide our actions and our thoughts. And we're also going to call upon the power of strength. And the power of strength is the ability to endure, to stay the course, and to persevere. So it's this that we're calling on the strength in order for us to accomplish and to follow through on the decisions that we make, and also to hold firm to spiritual principles. Now, in all honesty, how many of us have not always followed through on the decisions that we've made? Yeah, all of us at some point or another. So I just want you to know that you're not the oddball. That every single one of us has had something or some things in our life that we haven't really called upon these powers to follow through. And so that's what this is about today. As the scripture said, and actually this was from another version, is God has given us a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind, or of self-discipline. And so the challenge is that sometimes we don't really put our power to work because we don't know how to do it. And sometimes we think that we just don't have the power to make those course corrections, if you will, those course changes in our lives. And today I want to tell you that you absolutely do. Every single one of us is imbued with these 12 powers. Not a single one of us doesn't have these. And you have everything that you need inside of you to help bring those forward. And yet I know for myself that I need reminders. Anybody else need reminders? Some of what I'm going to share with you today, I shared in March of 2013. I was guided to this because for myself, I really want to start eating healthier. And I've gotten programs to help me do that, and I've talked a lot about doing it, and gosh, I even did it for like a week or so. And yet, and I know, and here's the thing that I absolutely know, I know that a shift in the way that I eat is going to really make a difference in my physicality. And so I really recognized that I needed some help, some reminders to help me stay the course and to be open to the ideas that are presented to me. So I hope that this is a great reminder for all of us of what it is that we can do to help us stay the course, to help us really stay on that path of what it is and doing what it is that we really want to do. So we're not living this conflicted experience. So, and this is from Dr. Roger Thiel, and he used what he called the SIP method instead of the gulp method. And the SIP method is successive, incremental, and progressive. And so what he's saying here is that we're going to take successive steps, meaning that they're going to be repeated over and over. We need to repeat the steps over and over. Incremental means that we're not going to eat the whole enchilada. And I don't know about you, but that's one of the things that stops me so many times, is that I look at this bigger picture and I'm overwhelmed by it. And I look at this bigger picture and what I don't know, and I'm overwhelmed by it. And so he's saying, let's take it in incremental pieces. Let's not look at the big picture. Let's step back and say, what is one thing that I can start doing today? And then progressive is as we repeat these small increments that we're going to keep progressing more and more and more into what it is that we desire. So successive, incremental, and progressive. Now I have to share with you here that I was turned on to this many, many, many years ago, and it's the daffodil gardens. And actually, I found that there's numerous daffodil gardens, but the one that I'm going to talk about today is the one in Milwaukee. And that these daffodil gardens were actually started by one woman. And to date, there's over 50,000 daffodils that are planted, and they're just gorgeous. And they're planted in different patterns, and they're all kinds of daffodils. And the idea behind this true story is that it was one woman planting one daffodil at a time. and just being committed to that year after year after year. And because she planted one daffodil at a time, year after year after year, it has now expanded into this glorious daffodil garden that people get to go and travel, and they're blessed by this one woman planting one daffodil at a time. Now, we could look at this and say, oh my God, that's so overwhelming. But again, we're going to step back and we're going to take successive incremental steps to get to start progressing as to what it is that we really just want to do. So the way that we do this is, number one, a little change and new thinking. Number two, a little change plus spiritual energy. Number three, a little change plus gratitude and joy. And number four, a little change plus connecting and caring. So first we're going to, I'm thinking that I had some in there. Okay, first we're going to look at a little change plus new thinking. And so this is where we're doing something different outwardly and we're adding it to our thinking. We know in unity and in a new thought thinking that it's our consciousness which really is what is affecting our experience. And so we want to take an action, but we want to have new thinking with this action. So he shared the story of a man who was going to some classes there, and one night after a class, this man came up to him and he just said, I need to talk to you. I lost my job a number of months ago. I haven't told anybody, and it has just gotten me so much that I'm sleeping like 18 hours a day. I can't make myself get out of bed and do anything, and I just feel myself getting lower and lower and lower. And Roger said, well, okay, we need to do something. So he said, how about this? How about tomorrow you get up a little bit earlier and you just go around the block, walk around the block one time. And this guy was just even overwhelmed by that thought. And he said, I just don't know if I could do it. And Roger said to him, you've got to intervene here for yourself. And so the next day, he got up a little earlier. He did go around the block. He came back and he was absolutely exhausted. But he did it each day. But what he did the following week was he started adding an affirmation to his walk. And so he took his walk around the block and he added this affirmation: I release the past and embrace a great future. So as he started, he walked around the block and he felt good enough that he walked around again. So he's walking now 2 times around the block, and this affirmation is really starting to help him. So he decides to add another affirmation, and he says, I am pure spirit, designed and destined to succeed. So he starts walking around the block. Well, he ends up going 5, 6, 7 times around the block, and then he adds another affirmation: I am blessed, guided, and prospered. Life is good. Well, in about 3 weeks' time, he is now walking around the block. He's got energy. He's not sleeping 18 hours a day. He starts looking in the newspaper for jobs, and he starts applying for jobs, and he gets a job, not necessarily the job that he really desired, but he stepped into that job, and he continued this process of an outward action with new thinking, and ultimately he got a job that was, imagine this, even better than the one that he had had previous to all of this happening. And that's how it works for us. You know, it's us getting ourselves out of the way and taking some action to move us out of that, but then with some type of a higher spiritual thinking. And I will tell you that affirmations truly work if we let them sink in. You know, an affirmation that doesn't mean anything to us, it's just words. But an affirmation that can finally sink in, it will change everything in your life. So the first one is a little, let me go back to that. A little change plus new thinking. The second one is a little change plus spiritual energy. And this is doing something new, but adding spiritual energy to it. So on this one, he tells the story of a lady who had kicked a heroin addiction and had been sober for a long time. And then she had to have some major surgery, and she was given narcotics to help her get through the pain of this. And unbeknownst to anybody around her, it kicked her back into abusing the medication that she was getting, and ultimately she was taking like 27 narcotics a day. She was finding ways to get these pills that were not the most legal ways to get these pills. And she knew that part of what she had used previously was she had used the power of God in her life. And so she would get up in the morning and she would pray. And she would open herself up to again, it's the power of her power, the power of her strength, the power of her will. And she shaved off a little bit of one of those 27 pills. And then she had that much less that day. The next day she shaved a little bit more off. And she did this, again, she did it successively. And it finally progressed to the point that it took 9 months. But 9 months later, she had totally become sober. And again, we know that we're not alone. We're never alone. And that we always have this beautiful divine energy of God supporting us and guiding us. And what we have to remember is grace. And grace is that we never reap the full harvest of our error thinking, and we always reap more good than we sow. And the moment that we align ourselves and we open ourselves up, grace is right there, and it's lifting us up and moving us forward. We don't have to do anything for that to happen except for to open ourselves up, and whoosh, grace is starting to move us forward. The third thing is a little change plus gratitude and joy, and I loved this. It's power in the combination of a change and gratitude and joy. He tells a story about a man who was really, really, really overweight, and he really wanted to get in shape and start losing weight. So he began to change his eating habits, and he began to do some exercise. But he did it with joy. He didn't do it with resentment, and he did it with gratitude. And so when he would be walking or when he would be doing something, he would be grateful for the movement of his body and how far he could go. He didn't beat himself up that he couldn't do very much in the beginning. He just went into gratitude. And then through this process, he began changing his eating habits. And instead of feeling resentful for the things that he wasn't allowed to eat, not allowed, but he chose not to eat, instead of feeling that, he went into complete gratitude for all of the new tastes and flavors and experience that he was having. And a year later, he had lost 30 pounds. Also, at that time, it was in 2005, he and his wife were heavily in debt. And so they decided through this process that we need to start getting ourselves out of debt. And so they decided that they were going to start looking at money they might be spending frivolously, and they were going to put that money towards their debt. And again, they went into gratitude. They went into this place of not feeling resentful that they weren't getting to do something that they maybe would have in the past. They went to gratitude and said, we are so grateful that we now have this money and it's going to pay our debt off. And it was about 2 years, and they finally actually were totally out of debt. And so a little change plus gratitude and joy. And the fourth one is a little change plus connecting and caring. And again, this is just so beautiful. There was a lady who was, she was an older lady. She was very, very, very low. And I look these things up on the internet because I like to make sure I'm telling a true story. And so the actual true story is that she was working with a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist wasn't able to get her shifted. And so he asked a colleague of his to go in to visit her. And so when the colleague walked into her home, and it was very, like the curtains were closed, it was very dark. She had all the money that she could possibly ever need and more, but she was just sinking lower and lower into this place of despair. And in the back, she had these violets. And that was the one thing that she enjoyed doing, was she enjoyed going and working with her violets. And she was creating all new kinds of violets. And she created the most beautiful violet plants. And he said, I absolutely know what this is about. He said, you need to start doing something with these violets. You need to start serving and to start giving. And so what he recommended was, you're involved with the church, go find out. Find out who's sick and in the hospital. Go find out who has had some joyous occasion, and start giving these plants to them. And so she started doing that, and when she died, there was actually an article in the paper about her, and it talked about African violet queen dies, thousands mourn, because her life had become so rich, because she made a change, and she made this change with giving, with being in service to people around her. So with those things in mind, what change are you ready to make in your life? You know, maybe what came up for you. I know, as I said, for me, it's shifting what I'm choosing to put in my body. And so one of the things that I've been guided to is I didn't know that there were food coaches. And so I'm going to get a food coach to help me learn about foods, because I'm not doing it on my own. But maybe you're wanting to drink less caffeine, and you could just not drink 1 cup a day, one less cup of coffee a day. And in that you may pray, or you may just be in gratitude, some way that you can use your spiritual energy, your powers. Perhaps you want to start exercising, start moving. And what one thing can you do? And make it believable for you, and make it something that you really believe that you can, I just said that, believe that you can do. So if you don't think that you're going to walk 7 days a week, don't put that pressure on yourself, because it's too easy for us to beat ourselves up. And that's not what this is about. But maybe you can say, you know what, I'm going to walk 20 minutes a day, 3 days a week, and make that commitment. Decide that I'm going to be disciplined in that, and call upon your powers, your power of power, your power of strength, and your power of will. And know that you have dominion over these thoughts that have kept you from doing what it is that you really want to do. You have power over your actions. You are the chooser. There's nobody else who can do it for you. There's nobody else who is doing it to you. You have the power within you. And that's why we want to really sink into this spiritual energy that is a part of us and that we are a part of. And perhaps to pray, again, to create some type of an affirmation, to move into gratitude, and ultimately to be in service. So whatever it is today that is pressing upon your heart, that you are ready to move into, to make some wonderful changes in your life, I encourage you to look at these 4 things: a little change and new thinking, a little change and spiritual energy, a little change and gratitude and joy, and a little change plus connecting and caring. I love this quote by Robert Holden that says, "One new perception, one fresh thought, one act of surrender, one change of heart, one leap of faith can change your life forever." So are you ready? Yes? Are you willing to make friends with the word discipline? Yes? That wasn't quite as powerful. But I encourage you to really allow yourself, even if you just journal with it a little bit, just write or think about shifting your relationship with the word discipline, because I promise you it will only guide you to the greatest life experience. That is 100% what I can promise you. So as you leave here today and as you go out into your week, I hope that something is already niggling in your consciousness, and that you will call upon your powers, and that you will do what can only be done by you, and it will progress into the greatest and most wonderful experience of your life. And namaste. Namaste.